through the transaction, you know, from start to finish, kind of what do you guys do? Like, I know you talk about like you search encumbrances and things like that, but what's your guys' process?
Sure. So in a standard real estate transaction, and by and large, you know, we're talking residential here because commercials, you know, there's many more landmines, of course, but on the residential side, we are reviewing your contract to see, you know, which parties are responsible for things and what property we're dealing with, of course, too. With that, we order title on the property, and a title search literally combs the public records to see what's attached to that property. Are there mortgages? Are there liens? Are there code enforcement liens? You know, anything that would impact your ability or somebody to have another secondary interest in that property that is outside of the seller's right to just pass to you. So once we get that, we get a title report back, and then we start the process of curing title, which means if there's a mortgage, we go and we get a payoff for the mortgage. So, you know, if my mortgage on my house, if I owe $200,000 to the bank and I need to pay that off to sell it, we go and we get that amount from the bank in order to be able to know what has to go on the settlement statement and what has to be paid to the lender at closing. If I live in an association, we're getting estoppel letters too. So an estoppel letter comes from the condo or the HOA, and it says Andrew is up to date on his assessments. The normal monthly periodic assessment is $400 a month, and there's no special assessments on the books, or yes, there's a special assessment on the books. So it's a detailed look at the association and what people are walking into from the association perspective. So we're ordering the title, the estoppel, the municipal lien search, and the municipal lien search is looking at utilities. Are there unpaid utilities on the property from the water company, from the electric company, things along those lines. We're also looking at unpaid property taxes. They're looking at code enforcement cases, or are there any actions or open permits on the property. So that's what the municipal lien search is looking at. So we'll review that and then work with the parties to also close those out as well if there's something open or it's collected at closing. And then the final thing is if there's a survey required, we're ordering a survey and reviewing your survey to see if there's encroachments on the property. Because we can't insure a transaction, at least cleanly insure a transaction, if there's an issue with a survey. So we're looking at all of those things while we're simultaneously working with a lender, working with the agents in the transaction to facilitate the contract towards a closing, working on logistics of, you know, who's signing here and there. That's always the last step, but just that is always a process of, you know, well, we've got multiple sellers, one's in Minnesota, one's in California, one's in Florida. So there's logistics of how do we get packages here and there. Technology is making some of those things easier, of course, but it's still logistic and it's things we have to work through. So it really is a time-intensive process for sure, but it's what gives the buyer and the lender assurances that the buyer is going to outright own that property, potentially subject to a mortgage, but really nothing other than that mortgage and maybe some lien rights of an association and an HOA.